As missing children flyers begin to circulate throughout the city of LA, a lot of kids begin to resurface on Figueroa Street under the control of the Hoover Criminals and other hoods throughout the city of LA. With the feds already taking down 11 people, a new superseding indictment in 2026 showed us the faces of some of the dirtiest players participating in the game on film. Rap News Street Politics, the best hood channel on YouTube, back with the West Side Hoovers facing some nasty allegations set forth by the federal government in the RICO indictment that initially dropped in August of 2025 and has progressed to a superseding indictment that was just released July 1st, 2026. Now, this superseding indictment has introduced some dirty players into the game, 7 new defendants to go along with the original 11 defendants charged, and 5 of the 7 are documented members of West Side Hoover. Now, we have to warn you, the allegations in this federal paperwork are disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. It's over 45 victims in this case, with 13 of them being minors. If you thought that initial indictment was crazy, the feds have added an additional 325 overt acts to make a total of 769 crimes or conspiracies to prove this RICO case. It's a man in this case who met a 14-year-old at a party, told her he was also 14 when he was actually 21. He took her back to his house, and when she woke up the next morning, she was locked and trapped into his bedroom. It's another individual on this case who bit off a young lady's cheek, gave her a perk, and sent her to the hospital. We got more tattoo branding, and we got some dirty players in here that like to teach each other how to deal with minors, along with having explicit relations with a minor, as well as producing explicit child exploitation material. But we also got some veterans from the last indictment racking up new charges. A Hobbs Act robbery where they ran into the lens crafters in Beverly Hills, striking for $150,000 in designer sunglasses. And the feds claimed this superseding indictment was already in motion 2 days after they got on the Lady Duck, all the way back in 2021 when the Hoovers dropped a music video on YouTube. But before we get started, we got the surveillance images directly from the Young and Hefe crime scene, along with the investigatory allegations. Y'all make sure y'all tap that membership. Now, the Hoovers have definitely been in the spotlight over the past year. Last year with the initial indictment dropping, again last year with the murder of YCA 80 Bands, multiple members from Hoover going down for that, another murder where Mac 80 was killed, and multiple members of Hoover going down for that homicide as well. And now the superseding indictment is dropped. And to go along with the new overt acts, the feds have put 8 new charges on the West Side Hoovers. Attempted trafficking of a minor, benefiting from trafficking, use of an interstate facility to aid racketeering, promotional money laundering, the Hobbs Act robbery, structuring transactions to evade reporting, and money laundering to avoid transaction reporting requirements. But along with the Hoovers, we do see one-off indictments, one of which involving a member of Santana Block Compton Crip, a member that likes to use force when dealing with minors, and another individual from 6 Deuce East Coast Crip who was caught up because he was dealing with minors that were also dealing with the Hoovers. Now, just like the first indictment, the FBI's best friend in this investigation was Instagram. They looked through every defendant's Instagram account, specifically looking for 2 things. They wanted to see everybody showing money, coupled with the captions and DMs, to prove that they were profiting from trafficking. They also wanted to see everybody showing guns, to prove that they use force and violence to protect the enterprise, which is the Hoover criminal gang. And they also focused on the same stronghold that they claim the Hoovers used to operate out of, the House of Hotties. For everybody that's not familiar, House of Hotties is a lingerie store off Fig in Manchester in the Hoovers. The FBI claims that the Hoovers have the owners and managers in position to help them traffic women in the Fig corridor. They can contact them at any time and get whatever they need out of the House of Hotties, and in turn, they protect the House of Hotties. But what the FBI also found is that the House of Hotties Cash App was also used to take trafficking proceeds, thus strengthening the bond between the organization and this place of business. But we gotta rewind the clock back to October 2025, 2 months after the initial indictment dropped in the Hoovers. The feds bring a dirty player off the bench, Cameron Lockett, who also goes by Janky. On October 28, 2025, a federal search warrant is issued to Janky's Instagram account, He So Paid. The FBI initially got the search warrant to look for human smuggling, and when they encountered evidence, they sought what's called a rollback warrant. And the rollback warrant allowed them to look for human smuggling within the deleted data of Janky's Instagram account. And while they were trying to prove that he was into human smuggling, they then get a rollback warrant to look for firearms trafficking. And by December 22nd of 2025, they not only have had full access to Janky's Instagram account, but they also had search warrants for 4 of his iCloud accounts. But this wasn't the FBI's introduction to Janky. Just like all the other new defendants in this indictment, Janky was involved with the original 11 defendants, and they notated his communications with a familiar player, Jared Evans, also known as J Money from 11 Deuce Hoover. But the FBI alleges that the beginning for Janky started on February 25th, 2023, when he attempted to recruit victim 31, who was a 17-year-old girl at the time. Through Instagram messaging on February 25th, 2023, Janky reached out to this 17-year-old girl and offered her some weed. A week and a half later, on March 8th, 2023, he hit up this little girl again, and she made it very clear to him that she was only 17. He told her she was gorgeous and said that she could make up to 10 racks a night. He told her that she'd live a better life if she let him guide her, and he wanted to take her around the country. When the little girl gave some pushback to Janky, he pressed harder. He promised to teach and elevate her. And again, she reminded him that she was a minor and that she was scared. Janky pressed back, said she can trust him, and told her he would get her a fake ID. He also promised not to beat on her as long as she obeyed him. And in this same text exchange, she told Janky she didn't want to start playing ball with him until she was 18 years old. He wanted her to start immediately and asked her to send some explicit pics. And on March 24th, 2023, she sent the child exploitation material to his DMs, and Janky made some nasty comments in regards to these child pictures. He also told her that it was now time for them to participate in intimate relations and said he would get a hotel. And he also asked her to make harmful videos and continue to entice her with drugs. Now, at the same time, he was engaging in trafficking with an of-age female who's referred to as victim 32 in the paperwork. On October 18th of 2023, through DM, he berated her for performing acts without protection. He got her in her car and started to spit on her. Some of the spit landed on the glass, and he instructed her to clean his spit up with her mouth because she was already dirty for not using protection. Now, as time went on, Janky went on to have another of-age female known as victim 41 in the paperwork. And as of November 26, 2024, he began to become physically violent with victim 41, a then 18-year-old female. And on this day, this is when he kicked her in her back and he bit off a chunk of her cheek in the middle of their interaction. He gave her a Percocet and sent her to the hospital. While she was at the hospital, he began to text her saying that they were both wrong and that he would marry her and save money for the both of them. Now, this is one point that the feds focused on, exactly how everybody in this indictment was using manipulation tactics and love bombing coupled with aggression to keep these ladies down on the blade and on their team. Janky goes on to tell victim 41 while she's in the hospital that he can't come to the hospital because he'll be going to jail. He told her to lie to the police and say that her sister bit her face during a fight. He also told her to delete his number and all the messages out his phone. And on this same day, Janky sent the picture of victim 41's cheek to J Money from 11 Deuce. Now, a week before this incident where he bit this girl's cheek, November 15, 2024, he was again in communication with J Money. And this is where he started to become a familiar face to the FBI. Via Instagram, Janky and J Money were discussing the condition of various blades, trying to determine which one was the most lucrative, and J Money said that he was going up to Bakersfield to set his people down. Janky inserts himself and says that he'll go to Bakersfield too and they'll put some money on the rental truck. And as the feds start going through J Money and Janky's communications, they find that Janky is somewhat leaning on J Money for experience. They notated a conversation between them where Janky asked J Money for pimp advice, and they both spoke about taking their talents to San Bernardino because the police were hot on Fig and it was messing their money up. But after love bombing victim 41 while she was in the hospital getting her cheek treated, she's released, and Janky convinces her to brand his name on her, and she goes and gets Janky tattooed on her lower back. And he was caught in communication telling her now that she's branded not to ever betray him. Now, while the feds have glued Janky to the trafficking allegations in this indictment, they turned their focus on his money. They noted that he changed his Cash App name from his real name, Cameron Lockett, to his Instagram handle, He's So Greedy. They notate many different conversations that he's having with his victims about how to send money and how much to send and at one time. They traced all his paper going back to an Altura credit union account linked to the Cash App. And the crazy part about Janky, June of 2026, just last month, right before the superseding indictment dropped, Janky has been on Instagram. His Altura credit union debit card is shown on Instagram. He's shown taking money proceeds on Instagram. Months after the initial indictment, he wasn't caring about what he was displaying on social media. But this is how the feds have also brought money laundering and concealment charges against Janky. But to top it off, they allege Janky is in firearms trafficking as well. He's seen on Instagram holding guns, and his communications with Jorge Melendez, also known as Crim Style, from 59 Hoover, back on March 26, 2023, where he was offering to sell Crim Style a gun for $700, bought the next dirty player into the fold, Crim Style from 59. Now, Crim Style is somebody that is synonymous with 59. He's one of the faces in that section of Denver and 59th. He's seen it all day hood days, and the feds start to take note of him again all the way back in 2023. Now, his first instance was in March of that year, but what fully tied him in was his communications with one of the original 11 defendants that went down in last year's indictment, Avery Amako, also known as Hands. Early in the feds' investigation, Crim Style and Hands participated in the drug trafficking allegation with those Percocet pills by the end of 2023. The feds counted at least 9 interactions where Crim Style was attempting to procure some Percocet pills from Hands. And the feds also got a front row seat in late 2023 when Crim Style and another vet, Matthew Brooks, also known as Vermont Star in the first indictment, had an argument over proceeds when 2 of their workers were catching dates together. But the real nasty allegations started for Crim Style in January of 2024. And this is when he was involved with a 14-year-old girl. And everything blew up when she met an undercover officer on Fig. So on January 26, 2024, LAPD was sitting back on Fig and they came across who the paperwork refers to as Victim 33, a 14-year-old girl wearing a red mesh lingerie bodysuit, exposing her top half and her bottom half with a youthful appearance. When the undercover officers engaged this little girl, she offered her services for $80 on the blade. And of course, she goes straight down. When officers figure out that she's 14 years old, they sit her in the room and she starts making statements. She stated that her trafficker's name was Jorge, also known as Crim Style from Hoover. She stated that she just met Crim Style 3 weeks prior to this incident at a party. She went on to state that Crim Style told her he himself was also 14, but he was in fact 21 years old at the time of their interaction. This 14-year-old girl willingly left the party with Crim Style, went back to his house, and engaged in some inappropriate acts at his crib. The following morning, she wakes up and attempts to walk out his bedroom when she realized that the door was locked from the outside. Shortly after, Crim Style comes back to his house with some lingerie and told her she was going to work for him on Fig. He instructed her that she couldn't come back with nothing less than $1,000. And this is when Victim 33 started to participate in the lifestyle. She stated that on her first night, she came back with $800, short of that $1,000, and he pushed her down a set of stairs. He began to punch on her, kick her, and hit her in her upper torso, and moved to grabbing her hair and pulling her into the house. 2 days before LAPD caught her on the blade, she said he wrapped his Rolex around his fist and punched her in the face with it. She said Crimstyle provided her with different type of drugs. And she also stated that there was an additional 17-year-old girl that he was dealing with, who the 14-year-old identified as a girl named Barbie. She said the 17-year-old also worked for Crimstyle until he whooped on her and dropped her off in the projects for allegedly lying about her age and stealing some weed from Crimstyle. And all the way back on January 26th of 2024, he was arrested for human trafficking of a minor. When they set him in that room, he was Mirandized. He stated he didn't know the 14-year-old and that he was not her representation on the blade. But then he goes on to make some crazy statements. He said he was assisting his friend with the initials of SC, who was from 9 Deuce Swans on the east side. He said that this individual was named Nightmare from Swans. He told police that that was the 14-year-old's representation and he was only helping give her a ride to Fig. Now, with all that talking Crimstyle did in that room, you know he made it out, but not before police took his phone. But now that he's back on the street, he got some new feet in what the paperwork alleges is victim 36. All while he was dealing with this 14-year-old and 17-year-old girl, he had an of-age woman that he was sending on Fig. Again, just like everybody else, he secured her off of Instagram and landed an in-person meetup. When he got with her in person, he tried to lace her up and develop her sticky fingers by robbing her customers. And he set the same quota for her, $1,000 a day, and also set her down in different motels, including the Hoover Motel. The paperwork alleges that he would track her location through Find My iPhone and require her to take her proceeds back to his house and leave it in a shoebox every night she was done. But Crimstyle's females kept running into the police. And on March 6, 2024, after he's released on them human trafficking charges, the police are on 70th in Denver in the Menlos, not far from the 59 Hoovers. As they're patrolling, they're seeing victim 36 wearing blue lingerie with her body exposed. And they watch a silver Mercedes quickly pull up to the curb and they watch her jump into the back seat. The police then proceed to pull the Mercedes over and Crimstyle is driving. In the passenger seat is another dude from 59 and another addition to this federal indictment, Mauricio Alua Franco, also known as SA Face. The Mercedes is impounded due to none of them having a driver's license. And upon a vehicle search, they find feminine hygiene products, condoms, and a motel key for the El Rancho Motel off San Pedro. Now, due to this being a human trafficking investigation as the reason for this stop, they take that motel key and pay the manager a visit over at El Rancho. When they check the file, they find out Crimstyle was the one that rented the room. And with that fact, they sit down victim 36 in an interrogation room. She goes on to state that she met Crimstyle on Instagram February of that year, 2024. She stated that she left her job and her home to be with him. She admitted to the police that she was a street worker. At this time, Crimstyle had also been in and out of a sober living facility, and on the weekends, he would be able to come home. She said she was on automatic, making sure she bought the money back regardless of whether he was there or not. And in March 2024, he started to become physical with her. It got to the point where he beat her so bad, she said that she wasn't able to catch dates. So he changed his methods due to previously leaving bruises on her thighs. Instead, she claimed he would just strangle her until she lost consciousness. And she described one beating where she claims that he left her face deformed. Now, if her statements weren't enough in that room, she showed detectives a tattoo on her ass with the branding Crimstyle. She also went on to describe a wild event when Crimstyle had her phone and asked her to help him with mobile banking. When she got her phone back, she immediately tapped the Uber to escape. This is when Crimstyle FaceTimed her and showed her her grandfather outside of his house, and he threatened to jump out on her grandfather if she didn't get back right. Now, shortly after the initial indictment dropped, January 14, 2026, a federal search warrant was wrote for Crimstyle's Instagram, Walk 'Em Down. At the time of us putting this video together, that Instagram is still up, and it still shows him flashing the same money that the FBI used in their indictment. It also showed him and SA Face spray painting, further corroborating the gang allegation. And last month, June 1st, 2026, the cell phone that was confiscated from him all the way back from his January 2024 arrest, where he went down for human trafficking of the 14-year-old, federal agents wrote a warrant for that device. And inside it, they found a fight between the 17-year-old Barbie that he dropped off in the projects and the 14-year-old that he was trafficking at the time of that arrest in 2024. Now again, they're also putting the drug trafficking on CrimStyle. Multiple communications of him dealing various amount of drugs. And they also speak about him having access to firearms as well. Now with the 50s officially being hot, multiple people in this indictment are from Phi Deuce and from Phi 9. And with members like CrimStyle showing guns on Instagram, they stumble across another Instagram of somebody from Phi Deuce Hoover Gangsta Crip, Khalid Mooten, also known as Pooh or Pooski. Now he gets on the Fed's radar all the way back on January 1st, 2024. He posted photographs of rifles, handguns, and shotguns on his Instagram. The Feds say the firearms appear to be loaded with drum magazines and extended magazines. And in a follow-up post on that same day, he puts up a video of what appears to be a woman repeatedly being shot with a firearm. And he captioned the post, "To all them setup bitches." And the Feds say that was a warning to trafficking victims not to take money from him or to report to law enforcement. Now, Pooh's gangbanging seemingly stuck out initially the most to the Feds. He's dissing the Rolling Hundreds, repping the 50s in his clothes, and they begin to take a heightened interest. But things take a nasty turn for Pooh when the Feds allege he trafficked victim 20, victim 45, and victim 46, all who were minors. Now, all through August 2024, they allege he was making multiple attempts to procure workers on Fid, asking women if they had pimps, sending women emojis with the open hands. But between June 2025 and August 2025, when the first indictment dropped, he starts getting his hands dirty with a 14-year-old girl. That 14-year-old girl, victim 45, was supplied a fake ID so that she can rent hotel rooms in her name, despite her being a minor. On June 23rd, 2025, Pooh posted on Instagram a missing and exploited children flyer with the photograph of this 14-year-old girl, victim 45. Some weird shit. On June 27th, 2025, he performed a predatory, inappropriate act with this 14-year-old girl. And on June 28th, 2025, he used the 14-year-old girl to recruit victim 20, a then 16-year-old girl, to be his new victim. Shortly after that, he uses the 14-year-old girl again to recruit victim 46. At that time, she was a 17-year-old girl, and he brings them all to the Stadium Inn. He made these little girls share their locations on their phone, and he provided food, shelter, and clothing to these children. And just like other defendants, he was having inappropriate, intimate relationships with these young women. On July 25th, 2025, he instructed victim 20 to go get an abortion. And after she did so, he forced her back into the street on the same day. And if she didn't want to go back outside, he threatened to fire her. But it seems like everybody's not all bad. On July 30th, 2025, on Instagram, another suspected member from Hoover had tapped in with Pooh and told him not to traffic minors because it made the set look bad. Pooh responded by identifying himself as a member of Hoover and asked this individual who tapped in with him what set he was from. And then Pooh responded by saying, "Let the bitch work." In the message, Pooh also claimed that the females were 18, despite him already previously hearing that one of the females were 14. But he also went on to say that once he learned he was dealing with a 14-year-old, he had his homegirls groover. But even after this conversation, the feds note that he was still dealing with the 3 minors. But around August 2025, he got into a physical altercation with the 14-year-old girl, alleging she stole from him. He ended up physically assaulting her in the Diamond Inn Motel in Inglewood, and everything started falling apart for Pooh at this time. Victim 20 had left, and he tried to recruit her back, but this time he was trying to send her to Pomona or San Bernardino. But unbeknownst to him, Victim 20 had sat down with them people. It's not known how she ended up in that room, but when she got there, she confirmed that Pooh had physically seen a missing child flyer for both herself and victim 45, the 14-year-old girl. He was well aware that these were missing children and under the age of 18. And on December 11th of 2025, a federal warrant was hit for the Instagram account YSL Pooh. Now, YSL Pooh like many others, still was active on Instagram and still up videos, pictures, everything. The feds tapped his Cash App, $512 gang, and victim 20 also allowed them in her Instagram account, and they got into victim 46's Instagram account. And this is where they also stumbled on Pooh being involved in a sting operation in July of 2025, where he had accompanied another victim to Anaheim, the Buena Vista Inn Motel, where he thought his victim was meeting a date, and it was actually an undercover law enforcement operation. But the feds didn't forget about those firearms on his Instagram account, and they're utilizing that in the complaint as well. So as I mentioned before, regardless of all these events that have taken place between 2023 and 2024, the feds were watching the Hoovers all the way back in 2021. That was the genesis of this indictment. February 9th, 2021, between Lady Duck and J Money. They were pulled over, caught with $9,000 in cash and drugs. 2 days after that, February 11th, 2021, the Hoovers drop a music video. Treyway, Poke, and Essay Face dropped the Hoovers. It was uploaded to YouTube, and the feds used this as an early introduction to this generation of Hoovers. Along with Essay Face being a part of this indictment, another original player from the first indictment made an appearance in this video, J Money from 11 Deuce. At 1 minute and 17 seconds, they took note of Essay Face's lyrics. The feds alleged that they not only spoke about killing their enemies, but they also spoke about introducing females into trafficking in this song. But Essay Face was not only in communication with J Money. With him being from 5'9", the feds found multiple communications between him and Crimstyle. When they looked through Essay Face's Instagram account, they found both him and Crimstyle spray painting in the Hoovers. And what really caught the feds' attention is when Essay Face posted an Instagram video counting a stack of money while sitting in the driver's seat of a vehicle. He posted the caption, "Still pinging, she got a goal to meet," and panned the video over to an unidentified female wearing a short black dress with a brown fur jacket and sandals, pacing the street corner while Essay Face stayed in the car. Now they say on January 18, 2024, he sent a voice message to a female known as Victim 35, an adult, and threatened to kill her by shooting her in the face if she didn't up the proceeds. He pressed her to send $1,000 and was caught multiple times coming down on her about some money. Now, as we spoke on previously, he was caught in the car with Crimstyle and one of Crimstyle's victims. The feds also caught multiple communications between Crimstyle and Essay Face speaking about gang politics on Instagram, who's getting DP, who has the pills, different robberies. And they caught Essay Face bragging to Crimstyle about clocking $2,200 from a black female that he sent on Fig. Starting on April 14th of 2024, Essay Face began trafficking another adult, Victim 38. Through Instagram messages and phone calls, he told this young lady that he wanted to see her win and that she would enjoy an extravagant lifestyle with him and that he wouldn't use her because he had his own money. And exactly a week later, he sent her the address for the El Don Motel off Fig, and he warned her about how they had to start adapting to different practices because Fig was getting too hot. He sent her a post from one of the original defendants, Hands, about how he was warning other traffickers regarding law enforcement on Fig. But either way, Essay Face still set Victim 38 down at the Stadium Inn. And on April 27, 2024, surveillance camera caught Essay Face, J Money, and another original defendant, Jaylon Phillips, also known as Waymo, at the Stadium Inn with Victim 38. The feds alleged that Essay Face and J Money would sit in the parking lot and monitor their victims doing their business in the motel rooms. And the feds alleged that Essay Face would switch from a boyfriend pimp to a gorilla pimp, first telling her that he loved her and turning right back around and calling her ungrateful, calling her a rat, amongst other things. But the feds also caught Essay Face and Crimstyle in communication with Lady Duck, who is the all-around lead defendant in this indictment. On May 17th of 2024, they were noted trying to buy an assault rifle off of Lady Duck for $1,500. And with dealing so close to some main players in this indictment, Lady Duck and J Money, it was only a matter of time before the feds tapped his shit too. And 3 months after the first indictment, November 25th, 2025, they get a state search warrant for Essay Face's Instagram account, which is now deleted, Rich Shotta Face. Now, one would be safe to assume that after the first indictment dropped, August of 2025, that most of these dudes would have laid low. They would have kicked back, changed their program up, and maybe try to dodge this superseding indictment, especially the people that went down in the first indictment. But as we see, it's not the case. An original defendant, Matthew Brooks, again known as Vermont Star, when he went down in the first indictment, he jumped on the phone in MDC. He called victim 21, which is one of his alleged victims, and told her that he wanted to marry her. And on the federal recorded line, he stated that she could not leave him. And then we have Naziz Harris, also an original defendant from the first indictment, who went by Info, a member of Hoover. His brother, who's not officially from Hoover, but who the feds allege is an accepted affiliate, is LaGrange Lennox, also known as King Blue, in this superseding indictment. When Info went down for trafficking a minor, he called his brother King Blue to take over his feet, and he slid King Blue the number to his minors, and King Blue inserted himself into this indictment. Now, King Blue had ties to Arizona, and that's where he started, June 22nd, 2024, with a 17-year-old girl known as Victim 39. The feds allege that he tracked her using an iPhone and set her down in a Motel 6 in Phoenix, Arizona. He wasted no time and started to produce inappropriate material with this 17-year-old girl and had intimate relationships with this child. And on June 28, 2024, he takes her from Phoenix, Arizona, brings her to LA, and the first spot he takes her to is Stadium Inn, where he then photographs her. On July 4th, 2024, he had an Instagram communication with the unidentified individual where he spoke about this 17-year-old girl, stating that she told him that she was 18, but that he knew she was probably a minor. And he went on to record multiple songs glorifying his pimping. Now, King Blue also had Victim 19, who was an adult, but who he was dealing with on behalf of his brother while he was sitting down. The proceeds from Victim 19 went to Info's commissary while he was in jail. But the beginning of the end for King Blue came on January 9th, 2025, when he attempted to recruit two females that he thought were street workers, but were actually undercover police. He approached these undercovers and said that they should leave with him. He promised to teach them how to engage in trafficking. He also told the officers that if they wanted to come with him, they had to pay him a fee of $1,500. And he told them he'd pay for their clothes, nails, and hair. And on March 19th, 2025, law enforcement obtained a warrant for the Instagram account Chosen Pups, which was King Blue's IG. They also got access to his iCloud accounts, and they also extracted data from the 17-year-old's devices. They found all the material that he produced with this child, and it hit the fan for him February of 2025 when he was arrested driving her while she was dressed in a manner consistent with the trafficking victim. Now, the next individual in this indictment came on the scene somewhat late when we talking about the start of when the FBI was paying attention to the Hoovers. But this is somebody that was in heavy communication about the drugs with Lady Duck, also speaking about robberies with Essay Face, and was definitely into branding the females he was able to get his hands on. We got Nakali Miller, also known as F3. Now, his first communications in this indictment came in 2024 on February 15th when he was speaking to Essay Face about robbing the house that night of one of their victims' clients. But over the next couple months, he's in communication with Lady Duck about pills and lean. But he jumps off the porch with his first victim in this indictment, September 7th of 2024. Now, this is an adult in the paperwork known as Victim 40. And between September and October of 2024, F3 dictated when she worked, when she rested, monitored all her work, and required her to report and turn all her earnings over to him. And he wasted no time branding her. September 8th, 2024, he told her that the tattoo of his brand on her body needed to be big. And later that night, she sends a photo of the branding on her ass. Now, the key thing about this tattoo, he has similar wording tattooed across his chest, which doesn't serve well in this federal indictment. Over the next month, he had many communications with her about how she's to conduct herself on the blade, as well as exerting dominance over the money that was being made. But on January 26, 2025, he's moved on to another victim, which is also an adult, Victim 47. Now, this is a female that eventually will become pregnant. And on July 4th of 2025, he was telling her that after she gave birth to his child, she still had to go outside and play ball. He stated that if she thought she would not be returning to the track, she had another thing coming. And it's noted that he whooped on her at least twice, leaving her bruised up and walking with a limp. But at this time, he also had what he called a little Russian female, victim 50. And in a series of audio and direct messages through Instagram, he seemingly got off to the wrong foot with her in September of 2025 after he beat her and she ran off. He spent a lot of time trying to get her back, and when he finally did, he instructed her to get the same tattoo branding as the other female, and it was done. But after the indictment dropped in August of 2025, he was caught on Instagram telling victim 47, who he had got pregnant, that he needed to get out of California. He didn't want to hide at her place because it would be the first place then people would come looking for him. But even after he got spooked, when everybody went down on that first indictment, he obtained additional victims that he trafficked and physically abused. Now, a federal search warrant was placed on his Instagram account, Big 9 Boy 89th Streeter, on March 27, 2026. They ran through all his data from September 1st, 2024, all the way up to March 17, 2026. And he had a run-in with the law January 31st of this year, 2026. Victim 47, the one he got pregnant, was in his car. His iPhone and her iPhone were both seized. And this is where the doors started to close on him, where not only did they glue together the trafficking allegations, but they also came to the conclusion that he had engaged in robberies, as well as having access to firearms. Now, one thing that threw everybody off about this indictment was when the worker of the Stadium Inn went down with the Hoovers. Ahir Mukesh Kumar, also known as Aki, not only worked at the Stadium Inn, but he also lived at the Stadium Inn as well. Now, when we covered the first indictment, the Stadium Inn was the main spot that people were sitting these ladies down in and committing the acts of trafficking. And when the initial indictment dropped in August 2025, one person from that indictment was arrested at the Stadium Inn, and another individual named Xavier Washington, who was not a part of the indictment or this indictment, also went down at the same time for trafficking a minor at the Stadium Inn. The feds ended up executing a search warrant and seized financial records at the Stadium Inn and conducted analysis of guest registration cards. This is when they found that a known victim of the Hoovers stayed in the motel for approximately 100 nights between April 2024 and August 2025 when the indictment hit. They noted that the victim paid cash for the rooms, totaling approximately $13,500. And additional records revealed hundreds of instances between 2024 and 2025 where individuals known or suspected to be victims of the Hoover trafficking stayed at the Stadium Inn. Now, Aki ended up getting in that room and making voluntary statements. He said that the majority of Stadium Inn's earnings are through cash, and he earns about half of all the revenue generated from renting the rooms. He then went on to say that prostitution was common in the area, and he believed many of his customers were engaged in the trade. Now, he denied being aware that minors were taking a part of the trade, but he admitted that many parents have came to that location looking for their children. And he went on to say that he believes 90% of the rooms were rented to people who were in the trafficking trade. But when some of the victims went down and they spoke about Aki, victim 17, 20, 21, and 22 all made statements that they were familiar with him as the manager of Stadium Inn. Victim 22 stated that he had intimate relations with the 15-year-old girl who was trafficked by Keandre Young, also known as Young Poke, another member of the original indictment from Hoover. When they dug into Aki's financial statements, there were multiple signs of concealment. He was going out his way to make sure all his deposits into his bank account were under $10,000. Aki was making some real paper managing the Stadium Inn, and this is why he went down as an accomplice for being complicit in the crimes alleged by the federal government. But as we said before, the feds have brought out a few new charges in this indictment, and one of them charges that holds a lot of weight is the Hobbs Act robbery. This is a federal robbery charge when interstate commerce is affected. And this was a situation that transpired back on March 22nd, 2024 with a fan favorite, Darrell Robinson, also known as P4K, from the Baby Stone Gorillas, coming out the jungles, the Black P Stones. But this move was spearheaded by two other individuals that were on the original indictment with P4K. Tejon Gray, also known as Tiny 3, or King off Manchester, who was accused of putting motor oil on a female, and Tommy Crockham, also known as Tommy Guns. Now, the feds allege on March 22nd, 2024, Tiny 3 and 5 unindicted co-conspirators robbed lens crafters in Beverly Hills. Now, this took place during store hours and while employees were present in the store. Tiny 3 and his co-conspirators ran into the store, grabbed designer sunglasses from the stands and displays throughout the store. Tiny 3 was said to have directed the co-conspirators to grab more valuable Cartier products. The co-conspirators broke the glass of the display case to obtain protected merchandise, and overall, they came out with over $150,000 in designer sunglasses and left behind $5,000 of property damage in the store. Now, how this works with the feds, when you have a store like Lens Crafters, and it can even be a restaurant, the feds allege that any place that deals in interstate commerce, it can be charged as a federal crime when you rob that establishment. In this case, the details are not fully out yet, but the feds simply can say these designer sunglasses were not manufactured in Beverly Hills. They either came from out of state or even out of the country. And since Lens Crafters sources their merchandise from out of the state or out of the country, stealing that merchandise in California affects interstate commerce. This is why the Hobbs Act robbery is a heavy charge added in this superseding indictment. Now, when they jumped out of Lens Crafters, they fled in 3 different vehicles. Within minutes of them leaving Lens Crafters, Tiny 3 sent the Instagram message attempting to already sell the stolen sunglasses. He messaged one co-conspirator, who was seemingly another getaway driver, and told him to drive faster, and then asked why he driving like that. 3 days after the robbery on March 25th, 2024, Tiny 3 is again speaking with another unidentified co-conspirator through Instagram about selling the stolen merchandise. And this is when he told that unindicted co-conspirator to remind P4K to bring the payment for a pair of one of the glasses. Now, on March 28th, 2024, Tommy Guns drove Tiny 3 to another unindicted co-conspirator's location with the stolen merchandise in the trunk of the car. And Tiny 3 left all the evidence in his Instagram account with taking pictures of the stolen merchandise, trying to get it off for sale. And this is just a bad look with an already ugly indictment. Now, that's everybody that went down with the Hoovers, but the feds didn't just stop there. Not only did they grab Xavier Washington last August in the initial indictment, they got some neighborhood Crips on here too. Now, in a crazy turn of events, the initial indictment on the Hoovers ended up causing a trickle effect throughout the city of LA. A 15-year-old victim, one linked to Keandre Young, again also known as Young Poke, from Hoover, had also been allegedly trafficked by an individual named Kylan Young from 6 Deuce East Coast Crip. He goes by the name K2, and he's on an indictment all alone, facing one charge of trafficking of children. Now, this all came about because the minor victim, once trafficked by Young Poke, gave up her Instagram account. And when the feds dug through it, this is where they found K2 from East Coast. So on February 24th, 2026, they look into the IG account Deuce BZ62, which was determined to be K2's account. And when they dug through the conversation between him and this minor, he can be seen giving his phone number out. And this is when they got him in the bag. In one message, he asked the little girl if she coming home, which the feds say was him directing her to come back to him. They accused K2 of transporting this child to Fig, purchasing lingerie for her, paying for hotel rooms, and was keeping up with her proceeds. She was calling him daddy. And back on January 29, 2025, him and the minor victim had a conversation about the minor being detained by law enforcement. K2 stated that he was looking for her and noticed that the police were following her. After this, he asked, "Are you really 18? She didn't directly answer his question. Instead, she advised him that she had frequent interactions with law enforcement due to warrants out for her arrest. Despite this, he still continued to work on her. He instructed her to put his name in her Instagram bio and provided her with drugs and alcohol. And they looked back at all their communication where he was trying to take her off Fig and take her to San Bernardino to work. But everything boiled over for K2 when this minor was sat in that room with them people March 26, 2026. During that interview, she was shown a photograph of K2. She identified him as her handler and her trafficker. She told the police his name is K2 from 6 Deuce East Coast Crib. She stated that he initially didn't know that she was a minor. However, he eventually became aware of her age. She stated that she met him through Instagram around January to February of 2025, and this is when she started to get down for him. She said he was starting to become suspicious of her age when she kept having frequent contacts with law enforcement. And she said eventually, like every other situation, he started punching on her. She told the feds that they did have intimate relations. Again, this is a 15-year-old girl. And after that, it was a wrap for K2. Now, despite all the allegations that's been heard up to this point, all the nasty acts that people have been committing, an individual named Kenny Ray Mann, also known as KR from Santana Block Compton Crib, could potentially be the dirtiest player in this whole operation. Now, it's not abundantly clear how he was wrapped up. He's not from Hoover, and he's on a lone indictment by himself, but he was operating around the Western and the Fig corridor in LA. But just days before the initial indictment dropped, August of 2025, in Roseville, California, a 20-year-old young lady is sitting in a room with detectives in the Roseville Police Department, and she begins making statements about the last couple years that she's had with KR. She explains she met KR July 2022, and he was her boyfriend and her pimp. She was 17 years old when she met him, and at the time of the interview, she's now 20. She said it all started in the city of Inglewood. He was a truck driver and stayed close to her mom's house. She said he approached her and they exchanged information. After initially getting to know each other, Mann introduced her to some weed, and they discussed how she previously has been inappropriately assaulted. He then made an advance by telling her she was beautiful and that he needed to protect her. As he begins to turn her on to the light, he takes her down to Hope in the city of Pomona, and she engaged in the lifestyle for about 2 months in Pomona while still being under the age of 18. She stated that Mann took her to Pomona because it's an easier blade to work on. It's not as much traffic as Fig, it's not as hectic, and this was to get her feet wet in the game. She stated at first, if she did something wrong, he'd take away her privileges. And after she got the hang of it, he began to fall back, leave her on automatic a little bit, and monitor her through AirPods while she was outside. She stated that as soon as she turned 18, KR turned the volume up. He started to take her to bigger cities, busier blades, and press harder. As soon as she turned 18, this is when Mann turned into somewhat of a boxer. Just days after she turned 18 on September 22nd, 2022, he choked her with 2 hands, threw her against the wall, and beat her down because she was potentially about to leave with another pimp. She then to describe that she ended up still going with some other representation after she turned 18, and the new pimp took her to Fig. Mann pulled up on Fig, beat up her new pimp, and charged her $2,200 to get back under his protection. But he took it one step further, a nasty step. He took her backside by force as a form of discipline, and she told police that he held her hands down while he did it. She stated that at one time he beat her so bad she had to go to the hospital. She told him it was that time of the month and that she didn't want to go outside. That's why he whooped on her. She said other times he forced her to stuff makeup sponges in her body and still perform on the blade during that time of month. He took her to Las Vegas, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, and always kept her ID. And in that room, she pulled out Mann's Instagram account for them people, KR the Star. She got a tattoo of his initials, Lady KR, on her lower back and KR behind her ear. The feds put pictures in the indictment, but they blacked them out due to the vulgar nature of KR's offenses. But this girl was not his only victim. Victim 2 in his complaint was another 16-year-old girl. On September 4th, 2025, this 16-year-old was working Western when she was spotted by police. After learning she was a minor, she goes down and into that room as well. She said that she left home as a runaway around August 31st, 2025, weeks after the first Hoover indictment. She said she met another pimp downtown. He took her to Fig, and this is where she met KR. KR began to provide her with drugs, and she started working for him. She described him as a black male in his 30s from Santana Block Crip. But unlike victim 1, she didn't provide his name and his Instagram account when she sat in that room. But she didn't need to, because while she was sitting there, she called him while she was in front of law enforcement. Just like victim 1, she has the same KR tattoo behind her ear. And when they got the search warrant for his Instagram account, he was in communication with another individual named BG Nutty Termite from Nutty Block. Termite asked if he was pimping. He said he needed something, and he tried to procure a trafficked victim from KR. Now, KR also had a communication with another Instagram user named Coach Mashin. This is where he tried to school Coach Mashin on how to deal with minors. He started by discussing pimping and staying away from minors. He went on to say exactly what he did with victim 1 while she was 17 and how he turned when she was 18. He said, you don't beat up on minors or threaten them, nothing like that. They the ones that's gonna tell on you. You be cool with them, help them out, and get them away from you. But if you do it in a cool and calm way, you don't do it in a rush, especially when you already been doing shit. Just last month, June 9th, 2026, LAPD had a run-in with KR at the Mission Motel in Linwood. They were conducting surveillance on him and was watching him move and operate. And as you see, a couple weeks later, KR from Santana Block is down in his own lonely federal indictment, trafficking of a child. Now there is one defendant left, allegedly from Neighborhood Crip, Dejon McDonald Williams, who also goes by Motion or D1. Now I don't have any paperwork for him, but just like the others, he got some cases involving a minor. He's on a lone indictment by himself, trafficking 3 victims, 2 of which were 16 and 17 years old, through force, fraud, or coercion. But everybody in the Hoover indictment, aside from Aki, faces a 15-year mandatory minimum, up to a life sentence. Aki, for his role as the manager of Stadium Inn, is also facing substantial federal prison time, but we know if somebody's going to trial, we gonna see Aki on the stand. And everybody that's facing a standalone indictment, K2, KR, and D1, they're facing a 10 to 15-year mandatory minimum and up to a life sentence in federal prison. But like I said in the first video, everybody in these indictments are bad people. It's over with. People can plead their case all they want, saying that they didn't deal with a minor. Whether you dealt with a minor personally or you was dealing with people and working with people that were dealing with minors, it's all the same, because everybody knew what was going on out there on the blade. This Rap News Street Politics, the best hood channel on YouTube. Make sure y'all stay tapped in, join the membership, check that Aunt Hefe video out. All the paperwork is in there. I believe Aunt Hefe gonna beat that case. Y'all stay tapped in.